You know, the most common response we hear from people when they step into this room is, I have driven past this building my entire life. I always have driven in and out on Broadway, and I had no idea this building existed. That's not okay anymore. This idea and the emotion and the passion that goes into the theater and the arts and the film that's happening inside this building needs to be shared with the public. So we feel it's our responsibility to open the doors to the public.
Folks, welcome to the Old Broadway Theater at the historic Epping District. Nestled into the 800 block of East Broadway, this entire strip of buildings between Logan Street and South Shelby Street is one of the last standing complete blocks of historically significant buildings along East Broadway, many of which have been torn down over the years as the economic and residential demand for the Broadway Strip began to migrate outward as the city's footprint continued to expand from its original downtown-centric roots over the last 100 years. This strip of buildings that we call the Epping District has been a place where people come to work, shop, and collaborate for over 150 years, a cornerstone spanning 5 different generations of Louisville, and we're excited to have you all here to celebrate the restoration and reimagination of the strip to set it up to thrive for the next 150 years going forward. But how about this theater, everybody? Built out in 1915 by Louis F. Sturley, the theater space hosted live music, movie projections, and vaudeville acts from the early 1900s all the way up to the 1970s, where it was operated as the Mad Hatter's nightclub, hosting some pretty big-time acts all throughout the 70s, including Pink Floyd, ZZ Top, and Ozzy Osbourne. Now you'll notice as you go upstairs and tour the original mezzanine and theater space that the Broadway Theater resembles other historic theaters in Louisville like the Brown Theater and the Palace. In fact, the Brown Theater is almost identical in theater size and seating as this one. The Broadway Theater was one of dozens of historic theaters in the Louisville area where people from different neighborhoods would walk down to their local theater to go catch a show, many of which have unfortunately since then been torn down. In fact, the theater was shut down in the late 70s and was in fact on the city's chopping block to be torn down completely, until the Zink family came along and saved the buildings in the early 1980s with plans to save both the buildings as well as to expand their family furniture business operation.
There was 8 inches of ice on the lobby floor, and if you looked up through the ceiling, you could see through to the sky. Rumor has it there was a demolition sticker on the front door of the theater, and that's a lot of the reason why the family invested in these buildings, was to save them from demolition and protect them for another day. When our family acquired these buildings, they'd been completely forgotten. They were ready to be demolished, and I don't think that the value was placed on the historic integrity of buildings like this then as much as it is now. And so my family, I think, had the foresight to look towards the future of what these buildings in this location could offer the community. And so we invested in them and took a chance.
Now, this strip of buildings was originally built along a strip of East Broadway that was much different from what we know of East Broadway today. Lined with blocks and blocks of historic homes and buildings, many of which have since been torn down, the Broadway corridor from the West End all the way down to the intersection of Baxter Avenue was the strip in Louisville. Not only a means of transporting from one neighborhood to another, but one of the economic backbones of the city, lined with local businesses from start to finish. Keep in mind, when the theater building was built out, the city limits of Louisville only stretched about 1 to 4 miles further than the location of the theater. So East Broadway was considered to be the heart of the city where most people in town lived around and did their business. Flash forward to today, and this little strip of Broadway is starting to buzz once again. Where we stand right now, we're less than 1 mile from New Lou, Phoenix Hill, the Highland, Smoketown, Shelby Park, and Paristown Point. And it's a straight shot down East Broadway into downtown Louisville.
So in terms of a connector, Broadway is as good today as it's ever been. It's a primary east-west method of transit that's very, very popular. The problem is, and what Broadway's lacking today, is its sense of identity and its real sense of place. We're realizing that not a lot of the community, while they drive through Broadway, don't really come to Broadway and have experiences on Broadway or go out to dinner or see a show on Broadway. So that's one of the things that we're most excited about for this project, is to really reactivate the Broadway corridor as a place of arrival, not just a place to move through. So when you walk into the theater, or rather when you walked into the theater historically, you'd move from Broadway through the entrance lobby where most of the original tile work is still present, most of which is from Rookwood up in Cincinnati. and you move towards the stage. And once you move through the glass doors, which didn't used to be doors, the floor height is still at its original height. But as soon as you cross the column line, the floor historically was a smooth concrete ramp that went all the way from the existing front of the building down towards the orchestra pit that's set just in front of the stage. So anybody that's ever been to the Palace Theater or any other type of historical theaters that have the smooth concrete floor, this building has the same type of floor still in place. The problem is, when we moved our furniture company here, we couldn't really build an office furniture showroom on a ramp. So we built essentially on stilts, 2x wood framing, a platform floor up above the original curved floor, which is what we see today. So as you explore the first floor of the theater building, below you is a hollow space where all the historic seats and aisles and rows for seating were used to be located. And so for phase one of the renovation, we're looking to really clean up the first floor of the space and reactivate it as more of an event space where people can come and experience art shows or weddings or galleries or corporate events or lectures or events just like the one we're doing tonight, to get people into the space and to realize the potential that we have here. Then we'll work towards phase two, which is to reactivate the Broadway Theater, open up the drop ceiling, take out the floor, and really remember what this place was born to do. So it may be art, it may be theater or film or food, but we want people 10 years from now to be comfortable coming to these buildings, appreciating the historic integrity of these buildings, and connecting with each other. So we're looking to develop based on that idea. And it's not easy, but we think that it's sustainable. And we're gonna work to really concentrate our efforts there so that when people come here 10 years from now to have dinner and see a show, and they can bring their kids to play in the park, they understand what it is that we're trying to do because they can feel what it is that we're trying to do because everybody here is working together to promote that experience. And I've told people a lot recently, if you want to see the before, you better hurry up and get down here because we're starting to move forward, and things are going to start to really pick up steam the more traction we gain.